with Nav.it, and I'm beyond excited today to be talking to Dagmara Wozniak, a three-time Olympic athlete and navigator, about her journey to the Olympics, her financial journey, and of course, how she's approaching the 2021 Olympic Games.
Yeah, so I'm officially not a three-time Olympian.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm so sorry, that's so exciting.
I'm like, it's new, so it's really exciting I get to, change my little title now. I've been fencing for, oh my goodness, I think over 20 years. I started when I was 9. I just turned 33 and been doing it all my life. Like I said, now just qualified for my 3rd Olympics. I was able to get a bronze medal in 2016 with my team. So hopefully, we can repeat that, if not do better. Also have the individual competition, so that'll be exciting. Just gearing up for Tokyo right now. Yes, I am a navigator and I love being part of Nav.it. So that's kind of been my little spiel.
Can I ask what your day-to-day looks like as you're starting to ramp up and train, or maybe even slow down because it's fastly approaching, right?
It's actually ramped up pretty significantly.
Okay, yeah.
Things have gotten a little crazy. Our whole year has been, obviously flipped upside down. For me, a little bit longer because right before the pandemic happened, I was coming back from surgery. So, to kind of right when I got back into competition, everything got shut down again. So it's been a lot of sitting at home and, just kind of trying to do what I can on my own. And obviously, as we were able to open up, continue training, we recently scheduled a lot of international training camps. So I was in Italy, I think maybe less than a month ago, just got back from Russia. So we're really kind of cramming in what we can before we're going out for the big one. And I fly out the 13th. So every day it's just going to the gym, doing a little, by little practice tonight, and just kind of maintenance at this point. We don't have a lot of time until our competition date, but it's just staying healthy. I think that's the number one thing that everyone's trying to keep at 100% here. So I would say I'm ramping up a little bit, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah, see what the flip side of that looks like. So you talked about the physical, right? And obviously you want to stay physically in shape and healthy. What does the mental side of that look like? How do you take care of yourself in that way?
Yes. And, especially with this whole pandemic, I think that a lot of people have kind of gone down possibly a new rabbit hole that, they haven't been aware of before. And as aware as I was that I was, mentally, this pandemic was what kind of toll it was taking on me. The first thing is kind of understanding, why am I feeling this way? Oh, maybe because the whole world shut down and all these things are happening. So I think every time I was able to kind of bring myself back into perspective of what's going on has been really helpful for me to kind of say, okay, I know what I'm training for, and having the Olympics postponed, I think that was also a big thing. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? Do I quit? Do I not? Do I continue? Do I train? So there was a lot of choices that needed to be made. And I think that this has been the most forgiving year of just, the cards fell how they fell. And going forward, we're just going to do, the best with what we can. I also work with a confidence coach that I meet with once a week. Kristen, she's amazing. And I definitely recommend finding someone, that you can talk to if it's not your significant other, if you feel like maybe, you're putting too much on them, or you just kind of need neutral ears. I think it's an amazing thing to kind of have someone like that in your life. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's and the why you were talking about and the forgiveness you were talking about all makes sense in terms of money conversations too, right? How do we manage how we feel about money in a year where we can spend normally and all of that? So pivoting a little bit, how do you think you'd have to, I guess for lack of better words, stay in shape fiscally or financially, right? What kind of money or mindset things do you think go into that process?
Yeah, and again, like this whole year has been, I guess, like a learning experience for so many reasons. And then, not going to the city as much, I was able to save some money because, I'm not training full time, or I'm not having gym expenses. So there was a lot of significant changes that kind of, happened with the money. And instead of being so gung-ho about like, oh, I can spend more now, I think that was the opposite. It's like, okay, well, I have this opportunity to save up a little bit more. Let me be financially aware of, what my position is, what's going on. I'm able to really crank out all my credit cards, and, just kind of be more proactive in terms of like, okay, how can I utilize this money that now, would have been spent on training expenses. But I have that now. So, what can I do with it? And I think, saving up was definitely a huge thing. And now that everything kind of opened up, I had, more of a cushion to be like, I can't afford the extra massage. I can't afford, the extra trip to here or there. So I think that was kind of where my mindset was, keeping it as much as I could, like a little nest egg. And then being able to utilize it for things that really were going to help me in order to prepare for the Olympics.
Yeah. Do you think Nav.it and like being a navigator helped at all in that process in terms of like the emotional impact money was having in a year that looked the way it did?
Well, I definitely believe it has had an impact. Not only moving forward, where I feel like I'm subconsciously kind of thinking about this stuff. I see the posts every day, and it's I think that financial awareness is something that's like, okay, it might be a post about like saving or, being afraid of money. It's like, okay, well, let me just take a step back and like, where am I? A little self-reflection, I think, is really healthy. And that's one of the things that I've developed as a habit in terms of being a navigator. And, just having all that like financial education. That I didn't have any of that before. I didn't even know what like balancing a checkbook, all that stuff, like nothing. I mean, down to the bare basics of how to take care of your money. And so I think that becoming part of the Nav.it family has really, opened my eyes to that, and, just not be afraid of that. Same thing. Like I wasn't really confident in what to do with my money. And then I was able to talk to Maya and Aaron, and just kind of like, okay, well, what are we doing with this? Like what can I do with this? And breaking that fear of like, oh no, we shouldn't talk about money. It's, it's taboo. Has really, really helped me. And like I said, it's that self-awareness of like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Can I spend this? Can I, not spend money on this? And where do I go from there?
Yeah, no, totally. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about fear, especially like I've been watching videos of you and fencing and trying to understand like your world a little bit. And it is very, at least maybe from an outside perspective, it's fearless, right? So it's interesting to hear you come to finances with a different set of fears, right? With a different,
exactly.
Yeah, it's just so that's really astounding to me. So I guess if not fear, right, we're pivoting away from fear. What does motivate you to like manage your money and spend your money and think about your money?
Well, it's, you want to be financially or you want to achieve things, right? So like eventually buy a house, regardless of how big or small. You want, a specific location where you want to live. So I think before I felt very out of touch, and in terms of it wasn't reachable for me, like some people might even look at like, oh, in Olympic games, that's not something that I could ever possibly do. But maybe training a little bit, or adjusting the training, or maybe finding a new coach, things like that can all of a sudden open your eyes and be like, hey, maybe this is a possibility for me. So I think that fearlessness, or at least taking fear out of the equation, or being afraid but facing it, has been really beneficial for me in terms of saying like financially, I can in the future afford these things. Like I can be on a track, to buy a house, to save up money, to set up college funds for kids if I ever have them one day. Like I have the tools to be able to kind of do that as an athlete, in my position, who's not working a 9-to-5 job. So, the big chunks of money that I might get here and there, how can I utilize it the best way, for myself and my future?
It's very cool to hear you talk about like the intersection of finance and like your sport, because it's you can see it. It's very, very clear how like you think about these two things very differently, obviously, but like there is an intersection.
Exactly.
I guess how would you say inclusion plays a role as in the team's dynamic, or like how important, if at all, do you think inclusion as far as like who's on the team and where they're from and what they're like plays a role in the success of like playing a team sport, but also like when we talk about the Olympics?
Yeah, and for me, it's like even something that I was watching today. There was, a little video about the Olympic refugee team. It's like there's representation for everyone. It's the team that's for everyone. They don't have a unified flag, or they don't all come from one nation. So piecing pieces like that together and coming together, I think it's an amazing form of inclusion, and that's what building a team. That's what is great, because you learn from each other. And it's so the same thing like when you build a financial plan, and you're getting all these people to kind of give you that kind of input. You're understanding, okay, different people come from different backgrounds, right? Different situations, different living conditions. So being able to kind of learn from that and then like move forward with making the right decisions, I think that's like really beneficial. Same thing, with being on a team. Everyone can bring something to the table, and that's what, your job is to bring your best, strength, and the same thing with bringing, the team together to be able to just kind of have a synergy effect of like, we can do this together collectively.
Yeah, totally. And that goes back a little bit to like the taboo bit a little bit almost. It's like when we all get together and talk about it, no one's scared to talk about it.
Yeah. And I don't understand why, but
yeah. No, that's totally fair. So pivoting once again, although it's not entirely unrelated, the Supreme Court, I don't know if you saw this, and the NCAA ruling. So they recently ruled that like student athletes can now benefit more from their position as student athletes, getting educational resources like funded internships, etc. And I was wondering, since you were a student athlete at one point, if you think that would have changed your experience, or just if you have thoughts on the ruling, and it's okay if not.
No, I mean, honestly, I have, I don't know if mixed feelings is the right way to describe it, but I guess I am kind of reflective, like how would have this been different for me? Did I have opportunities when I was, in college that I wasn't able to capitalize on because of, the NCAA rules? I just think it's moving forward, like, even though it's collegiate sports, if you're using the likeliness of someone to benefit, the program more and things like that, like obviously making money off of the images of athletes, like they deserve to get something back too. And so if athletes now are able to get, more profit in terms of being able to sign up deals or get endorsements, or like you said, even paid internships and things like that, I think it's only fair to be able to kind of get back what you're putting out. Athletes sacrifice so much time and dedication, and it's hard to balance school and athletics, and especially if you're a rising star athletically, but you're still going to college, getting the grades, doing the homework. It's a lot. And so this kind of gives that like gratification of like, okay, I'm getting something for all the sacrifices that I'm making, which I think, like I said, I think it's only fair.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Do you think for you personally, because you just talked about balance a lot, which we obviously talk a lot about at Nav.it, do you think that balancing, and maybe it started earlier than college even, but between, you're right, being an athlete and then getting good grades and like showing up to classes and all of that, helped you do the balancing act you do now? Do you think that was an influence? Or?
Definitely translated. And I think that I learned that, going into high school, sorry, my dog is making so much noise.
You're good.
I definitely think, when I started traveling internationally a lot when I was in high school, there was the balance to learn, okay, how do I take care of my homework and be able to, keep up my grades and all that stuff. At the same time, trying to improve my fencing, my world ranking, making the national team, things like that. So I think one of the biggest things that was really important for me was that I finally learned how to kind of speak up for myself. There was a tough situation and I was kind of like, okay, well, I need to tell my teacher about it. I need to say like, hey, listen, I'm, leaving for a competition. Can I take the exam before? Can I take it, make it up afterwards? Like, here's my situation. Let's kind of compromise and work together. So I think finding my voice in that situation was also kind of like, okay, I'm managing a situation and I'm trying to make the best out of it. But if you kind of just work on that yourself, and then someone said, well, I can't help you because you never told me. So that's kind of the situation that I learned, that a lot of teachers are actually willing, to help me, or my coach was willing to shift some things around because I was vocal about like, hey, this is what's going on. These are my needs. And it translates the same thing in anything, right? Financially, if you're not able to, I don't know, get a loan or this or that, there's people that you can talk to figure out what's the best way to help. Maybe you need to improve your credit score. Okay, how do I do that? So just like utilizing different, avenues of how can I get information to be able to manage my situation and what I want to.
That's awesome. Pivoting again back to current events. The other thing that's in the news a lot right now during the Olympics is the Equal Pay Act and the Even Playing Field Act, which would ensure equal pay for male and female athletes, which I think senators just reintroduced. If I was wondering generally if you had thoughts on that, but more specifically, if there's anything you would say to the senators who are going to be voting on whether or not that should pass and go forward.
I definitely agree with having equal pay. It's not something that I feel is a huge issue in our fencing world. Things are, divided the same way. It's if you're in that bracket, then that's the payout that you get. But to hear that is happening to other athletes, and I think, just because regardless if you're male or female, you are sacrificing your time and energy in order to improve, represent your country. So I think that, that it should be equal. It should be a representation of like, hey, this is the hard work that I put in, and that's, what I'm getting back. And to have that difference be because of gender, I mean, if that's not a kick in the face, then I don't know what is. But like I said, it's just despite gender, religion, whatever the case may be, if you're putting in the work, then you deserve the pay.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah, going back to a little, because that kind of touched on inclusion, right? It's interesting to hear you talk about like fencing not personally being as impacted, but other sports are. Do you think there's kind of that sense in finance as well of like a space for people who maybe aren't personally impacted by something, but to stand up or say, hey, but other people need this maybe?
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing to just understand what different situations there are. I mean, education is just improving yourself every day, like knowing not only what's going on in your situation, but what's happening around the world. So I think it's totally important to have that, be at the forefront. Like it can't all just be about you, because there's also different ways that you can help and you could, possibly change someone's life.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I have just a couple more questions. Awesome. One of which is, what are you most excited about when it comes to Tokyo? You talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but
yeah, the thing that I'm excited about the most, probably just that it's happening. This has been like a really hard year for, personally, globally. I think that just kind of, I know that there are people that still don't think it should happen, but at the same time, being able to go out there and have that opportunity to represent, my country and be there with my teammates who I know have sacrificed so much, it's a good feeling. I know it's going to look different, they're not going to be tons of people or spectators or all this stuff, but I think just having the opportunity to go out and compete, and that having that little sense of normalcy in terms of, hey, there is an Olympics and it wasn't canceled. I didn't just sacrifice 4 years for nothing. Well, 5 years now. I didn't go through surgery just to not have it, amount to anything. So I think being able to just compete is going to be the icing on the cake, the cherry on top.
Yeah.
For me, success is getting through the struggle. Even with fencing, I've had so many injuries, I've had so many ups and downs in my career. And I think that, when you kind of like keep your head down, just do the work that you need to do in order to get through, and then kind of see that, that glimmer of hope, like, hey, I am on the right path. Like, wow, okay, like all that, PT or surgery or this or that, I can feel how it's having an effect right now. So that like that kind of sense of accomplishment is really, to me, what like defines success. It's not, I'm not the athlete that wins everything, but I think, there's so many times where someone in my position would have probably quit. And the fact that quitting is just not even an option for me, I'm like, for me, that's the success. That's the thing that I'm most proud of. And I think financially, it's the same thing. When you have a goal and you think this is in no way, shape, or form is this, something that's reachable for me or attainable. But then you kind of do the work, you sit down, you make the plan, you do your charts, everything that you need to do, you speak to the right people, and then you kind of put a game plan going forward. And, even something as simple as being out of debt for as long as I have now, it's probably one of the most amazing, feelings in the world. And it's like, that's not even the problem anymore. Where before it was, like living in paycheck to paycheck, like, how am I going to, make this work for me, and get myself out of that? Now that's not even, a thought. That's like automatic. I know how to deal with that. Moving on to the next thing of what do I want to accomplish. So I think that, trudging through the mud and getting on the other side is like the success, either if it's financially or if it's, in fencing.
Yeah. Are there any specifics you can point to of like, do you have a mantra? Is it mindfulness? Is it the checking in that you like have to channel in order to do that?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I do have a mantra. One of them has been, like, I can do this. I know it's simple, but it's just kind of bringing yourself back to center. I've worked with my confidence coach, I think, for over a year now, and the checking in has definitely helped with her. And regardless if it's, I talk about everything. It doesn't only have to be sports. So most of the time, I feel like the things that affect us the most are actually non-sport related. If it's something happening at home or personal life or this or that, financial, things really kind of affect how you go in with your mindset, into athletics. So just kind of, just mentally venting all that out, I think it's really, beneficial. And being able to just daily kind of check in with yourself and say like, hey, okay, did we do enough today? If we didn't, that's okay. We still got tomorrow. Because once I knock off 10 things, from my to-do list, I magically add 15. So, yeah, I think all those things that you named are things that I just constantly keep having, these talks with myself, and I'm like, okay, where are we at? Okay, we're okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then again, that brings very well into the financial space too, because that's essentially what you do as well. Is you check in, you say, where are we at today? Exactly. And then you take it from there. It's just one day. My last question to you is just simply, why do you love Nav.it? What's been the best part of it for you as you train or as you go through such a long year like we talked about? I would just love to hear your answer to that one.
Yeah, well, number one thing being, Nav.it welcoming me, into their family, and also supporting me as I'm training for the Tokyo Olympics. And, I met with Aaron and Maya a while ago, and I think that they've been huge supporters, and very, very thankful to have them, believe in me and my story, regardless of, what Tokyo is going to look like, but supporting my dreams. And that's amazing to have people like that, in your corner. Besides the support, also being able to have access to all this amazing, financial education and articles and, the constant emails. Like, I love being on, the newsletters and just kind of reading like, hey, this is something that's new. And it's not just, I don't know the best way to explain it, but it's not just like, hey, save a penny, and at the end of the year, it's not just kind of like, there's really awesome articles that they write about, what's current, what's going on. The inequality with like how women weren't able to be in charge of their money for so long, or only I believe the 70s. So it's like really crazy to see how far it's gone, not only for, as a company, but just for women in general, and being a part of that is just awesome. And like I said, I'm much more financially confident than I've ever been, because same thing with checking in, right? Like I was always scared to like look at my bank account, what's going on? I don't know what's going on with it. And even if I do know what's going on with it, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
I just feel like I have a lot more tools to be able to kind of put a plan together and shoot for the stars.
And that's really the goal. So that's great. Doggett, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. We're really, really glad you're part of our team as a navigator, and are wishing you the best of luck in Tokyo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.